Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I ran out of ideas today, so I thought I would do something I usually don't do, a full-on prediction video. Fingers crossed that no events get canceled within that time because that would seriously suck considering 7 fights have already been canceled. But even with half the card seemingly vanishing into thin air, this card is pretty good, and I'm actually looking forward to watching this fight card. So, in a few seconds, I'm going to have all of the fights for you on the screen. So, without wasting any more time, let's jump into the video. Starting off with Modestus Bukauskis versus Rafael Sequeira. I'm gonna go with Modestus Bukauskas. He looked all right against Marcin Prachnio. He showed great survivability against Prachnio after getting hit with a ridiculous question mark kick, and was able to secure an arm triangle in the third round. Heavy power punchers have been able to walk down Bukauskas before, but I don't think he needs to worry about that against Rafael Sequeira. Sekira is a walking punching bag who somehow managed to come into the UFC with a record of 11 and 0. There is no way Rafael Sekira came into the UFC as an undefeated prospect just to let Ibo Aslan walk him down and mug him in broad daylight. I think the only reason Sekira is on this card is to show him getting knocked out by Ibo Aslan, who I will get to later in the video. I consider Modestas Bukauskas as a UFC fighter, while Rafael Sekira simply isn't. We're gonna move on to the next fight for now because this is pretty straightforward. We're gonna move on to Nick Klein versus Mansour Abdul Manik. Abdul Manik is uh, a fucking monster, simple as that. Dangerous power puncher with the willingness to wrestle, and some of the nastiest ground and pound I have ever witnessed. Nick Klein, on the other hand, I don't really know who he is, so I had to quickly look at a random regional fight that he participated in. He's all right, but he's been broken down before in the third round against this random Canadian dude. And I think Abdul Manik can do the same thing, but much faster. The UFC already has Abdul Manik featured on Fight Pass highlights, while the only piece of media I can find relevant to Klein is his Dana White Contender Series Media Day. It's pretty clear that the UFC want to take care of Abdul Manik as a potential star, so I'm going to favor Abdul Manik to get this done early in the first round. Up the card, we have Ricky Simone versus Javid Basharat. I could see Javid Basharat winning, but I do not like to pick Javid Basharat against anyone who can pressure forward. Ricky Simone is a guy who can pressure forward and beat your ass. Now, I understand that Ricky Simone hasn't looked great in his last 3 fights, but he's not losing to scrubs. He lost to Song YaDong, Mario Bautista, and Vinicius Oliveira. I don't think Javid can keep a guy like Ricky Simone alert on the feet like the last 3 guys I mentioned. Javid's boxing is pretty mid. You give Ricky Simone a guy who can tee off with combinations with some mustard on it, Ricky Simone will have a lot of problems to deal with. But Javid is not that guy. Javid just likes to kick and keep you out of range, and his grappling, I'll say, is very mid. So unless Ricky is completely washed, I think he's gonna knock out Javid Bashrat in the later rounds. We're moving on to Nursultan Ruziboyev versus Eric Mikkoniko. I'm picking Nursultan Ruziboyev. I think Nursultan Ruziboyev is very tricky to fight against on short notice, and Eric Mikkoniko is coming in as a short notice debutant. Outside of Ruziboyev's loss to Joaquin Buckley, he knocked out everyone else in the first round. Yes, these knockouts were against bums, but we know that you need some skill and experience to beat a guy like Ruzi Boyev. Now, there's a chance that Eric McConico is coming in with all the roids juiced up. because as a short notice replacement, the UFC doesn't have time to check if you're clean or not for steroids. It could be a good underdog pick, but there's a reason why Ruziboyev is heavily favored because, again, Mekoniko is fighting absolute schmuck at like street beefs or something. So I'm gonna go with Nursultan Ruziboyev to knock out Eric Mekoniko. Moving on to Ion Kutalaba versus Ibo Aslan. Like this is really hard to pick. Like I generally have a rule. I love Ion Kutalaba, and I know that Ion Kutalaba is better than Ibo Aslan. However, I can never trust Ion Kutalaba to win a fight because he'll do something completely retarded every time he has a chance to win. Like, god damn it, Kutalaba, why are you getting knocked out by Kennedy Nizuchuku? The only people Kennedy Nizuchuku has been able to knock out other than Kutalaba are fat fucks in the heavyweight division. But then again, Ibo Aslan could be dog shit. I mean, he lost to the pleasure man, Anton Shirkalj. I know that Aslan beat him in the rematch, but you can't expect me to actually believe that you are a legitimate prospect while losing to Anton Shirkalj at any point in your career. This is honestly a pick 'em fight. Therefore, I'm going to say Ion Kutalaba will pull off the upset because, again, Kutalaba has nothing to lose, especially in this situation, considering Ibo Aslan is a prospect the UFC want to take care of. We're gonna move on to Andre Fili versus Maliquazel Costa. I'm gonna say that Costa can get the job done via submission. Andre Fili looked really old and bad in this fight with Club Swanson. And before that, he got knocked the fuck out by Dan Ige in like the first round. Do I believe that Malik was Costa is this unbeatable prospect? No. Like we watched Steve Garcia put him out cold not that long ago. But Andre Fili is not gonna put your lights out like that, like a Steve Garcia. Andre Fili is probably just gonna jab at range, find some like inside kicks, like just mix things up. Nothing really special. He's just gonna win on the scorecards most likely. It's also important to mention that Philly is well out of his prime, while Malikos Acosta is like 28 years old. So at this point, even if Andre Fili wins this one, I am going to continuously pick against Andre Fili because he hasn't really won that many fights before the age of 35, and now he's 35 years old. Enough said, we're going to move on to the next fight. Moving up the card, Alonzo Menifield versus Julius Walker. Now, this is also a dangerous pick'em. I can see Menifield just being completely retarded and bum rushing into Julius Walker to get flatlined in 30 seconds. However, Julius Walker may be another example of an undefeated prospect who's only finished absolute schmucks off the street. Typically, when these guys get called up to the UFC, they get brutalized in the first or second round. I am not confident in picking Manyfield whatsoever, but I think Manyfield can win in a variety of different ways. He can win by submission, knockout, or decision, because we've seen Manyfield be able to win all by all three methods. Julius Walker only knows how to knock tomato cans out in the first round or two, and if he doesn't put away Alonzo Menifield in the first round or two, I think Alonzo Menifield can drag this out into the deep waters. Therefore, I'm picking Alonzo Menifield to get the job done. We move up the card to Gene Silva versus Melsik Bagdasaryan. I'm sorry, I mean Jean Silva. I think Jean Silva should be able to get this done. Now, Bagdasarian is actually good, but he hasn't fought in roughly 2 years, and he's had to pull out of three separate fights, all within the span of 2 years. I think the inactivity is going to cost Bagdasarian, especially against someone who is coming up with a lot of momentum on his side, Jean Silva, one of the four members of the Fighting Nerds Quartet. This guy's going to get favorable matchups in order to fast track him into the featherweight rankings. And I think the UFC made this matchup knowing Bagdasarian will accept because he hasn't fought in 2 years. Bagdasarian can look impressive in the first round, but if this fight drags on into the later rounds, I favor Jean Silva's activity, combinations, and his incredible shot selection to get this done. We're gonna move on to Rob Font versus Jean Matsumoto. I think Rob Font can mail Matsumoto a fat ass fraud check. Now listen, Matsumoto is pretty good, but if you're going to fight Rob Font, you have to show me signs of being able to defend a jab properly. Unfortunately, I think the boxing defense of Matsumoto is going to get exposed on his card because Matsumoto is getting jabbed up by the likes of Brad Katona, a 5'6 bantamweight with a whopping 65 inches of reach, who primarily likes to wrestle. I thought Brad Katona arguably could have won that fight against Gene Matsumoto. Yes, Matsumoto landed the more dangerous shots, but I thought Katona was getting consistent damage off throughout the fight. Regardless, I think that Rob Font is leagues above Brad Katona, especially in the boxing department. Can Rob Font be held down if Matsumoto shoots takedowns? Yes, but Matsumoto primarily likes to keep things standing. Plus, you have to understand that Matsumoto is filling in as a short notice replacement. There are factors in both the circumstance of the fight and Matsumoto's past performances that I look at as red flags. I I am picking Rob Font to win by outpacing Matsumoto in the later rounds. We move up the card to Brendan Allen versus Anthony Hernandez. Now, this is really tricky. Now, at face value, Anthony Hernandez should win this, but Brendan Allen's style is very tricky for a guy like Anthony Hernandez, who primarily just likes to spam takedowns and throw a bunch of random punches. If this were a 5 rounder, I would pick Hernandez with confidence, but a 3 rounder is kind of risky. If this fight is stuck on the feet, I feel that Brendan Allen ironically will have the advantage. I'm not saying it's a lot, but I think Allen's technique is a lot cleaner. And you know what? I'm picking at Brendan Allen to win this. I want to say see Hernandez win because I think Hernandez is a potential threat to both Dricus Duplessis and Hamza Chimaev. However, stylistically, as well as the number of rounds, are all in favor of Brendan Allen. Yes, Hernandez is relentless, but I think Brendan Allen has the better grappling technique and control, at least compared to most of the opponents Hernandez fought. I'm really hope I'm wrong for this because I don't want to see Brendan Allen win this fight, but in my mind, I think Brendan Allen edges out a close decision. Finally, the main event, Henry Cejudo versus Song Yadong. I'm going with Song Yadong on this one. I can't pick a 38-year-old flyweight with a style that has been outdated since 2022. Cejudo's skill set just does not do well in modern MMA. Cejudo came from a time period when wrestlers really didn't need to learn jujitsu on top of their wrestling in order to grapple effectively in mixed martial arts. Do I believe Cejudo can take Song Yadong down? Yes, but what is he going to do after that? I see no way for Cejudo to win this fight other than via decision, and I'm not about to pick a 38-year-old past his prime to win a 5 round fight, especially against Song Yadong, who is known to push a pace as the fight drags on. The only thing Song needs to worry about for this fight is whether or not he gets taken down. That means no combinations, no power punches, no submissions, no alien like gas tank, no potential ground and pound. Just defend the double legs and singles. I predict Song Yudong will be able to put an ass whooping on Cejudo, at least for 5 rounds, and possibly find a TKO somewhere in the third or fourth because we know that Cejudo will be tired if this fight goes the distance. All right, that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys would like to see more prediction videos in the future. Also, I'm out of ideas currently, so if you guys have any video ideas other than the Gooning tier list part 2, let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, I will see you guys next time. Peace.